Good Thursday to you, everybody in COMM 245. Welcome from your new instructor, who is me. Um, Good summer to all of you. My name is Dr. Jeff Gardner. I am an instructor in the Department of Communication Arts at Regent University, and I will be taking over this class. So I guess it's not your class now; it's our class. I am not exactly sure what happened to your original instructor. I hope she is well. But she is not able to continue. So the departmental chair, Dr. Stephen Perry, called me up and asked me if I could step in, and I told him I would be happy to. So welcome to all of you from me. Okay. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I have been studying and working and teaching in communication for something like 20 years now. Makes me feel old. Uh, and before communication as a study, I studied and worked as an historian. And the two fields are actually very closely related to one another in that they're both here to sort of figure out why it is, or maybe how it is, that we communicate information from one another, whether that's me talking to you through a video, face to face, or down the generations. In other words, why as humans do we do what we do? So that is our focus and our concern for this semester. Now I know that we're now nearly 3 weeks in, and it's this being an 8-week course. We're coming up on the halfway point. So starting today and then moving over the next couple of few days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, first thing that I will do is get the work that you have turned in graded, evaluated, and give you some feedback as to where you're at and where we're going in the course. And then make sure as we move through that everything is posted and timely and you hear from me. Okay, so given that objective, especially you hear from me, I will once a week post a video in which I'll cover what you did last week, talk a little bit about your responses to questions and the readings, and then I'll focus a little on what we're going to be doing in the current week. So this way you have a sense of how you did, where you've been and where you're going. All right. Now, if you go to your Canvas shell in the all about your instructor page, you'll see my picture and my contact information and my office hours. If for any reason you need to get a hold of me, and maybe because it's not getting feedback, you feel a little lost or you're not really sure about what you're doing here, contact me by way of email. It's most helpful to me if you use Canvas email at the very least, or if not, use the email address that I have listed in the About Your Instructor page. I think it's isn't that through the module links in Canvas? Yeah, under course information. And that just helps me keep all my emails straight so I don't get confused. Okay. So I can imagine, some of you are sort of like, what am I doing and what's going on here? We're going to get that all straightened out. Not to worry. We're going to have, at least what remains of it, a great semester. All right. So let me tell you a little bit about myself. First and foremost, I love coffee and drink it in copious amounts. I love coffee cups. What do we have here today? Let's see. So you can get a picture. Oh, yes. Rocky Mountain National Park. Very fine representative of our national park system. In addition to coffee, then you might guess from the cup, one of the things I love to do is be outside and outdoors, especially mountaineering and backpacking. If I could figure out how to make a living, I love what I do, don't get me wrong, but if I could figure out how to make a living with a pack on my back, brother, you would never see me, or except only when I ran out of food and or coffee. So I spent a lot of time hiking around and thinking about our communication between ourselves, the natural world, and God. And in fact, you'll see this in my in the About Instructor page. I've got a new book out, or soon to be out. So if I can, you can see that without the reflection of the camera lights. There we go. Sort of see it. It's called Landscapes of Grace: Hiking Faith and Finding Yourself in the Wild by, there's my name, Jeff Gardner. In which I explore the relationship between how it is that we understand ourselves, how can we better do that by spending time observing the structure that is nature and the communication that entails, because we're not the only creatures that communicate. Far from it. Communication is a universal process for all living things. And these essays explore how it is that we communicate, especially to and about ourselves, how the natural environment communicates, and what lessons can we learn from observing the natural environment, and then making adjustments to the other, ourselves, both within ourselves and between one another. And it is my belief that if we do that, and to do that attentively, we will draw closer to one another, we'll draw closer to the material world that we're a part of, and we will draw closer to God, the source, for who we are and why we're here. Okay, so theory within communication is something that I spend a lot of time thinking about. And to me, communication theory, it's a sort of a good news, bad news situation. And the good news is it's absolutely essential that, for us to talk about theory, to study theory. Okay, when I say theory, I don't mean it by himself. The good news is it's good that we're here, because it's absolutely essential to study theory, because at its heart, theory tries to answer the question of why do we do what we do? What motivates us as human beings as we interact with one another? And we must interact. We are highly interdependent beings. We cannot become who we are, who we're meant to be, and fulfill our vocation, vocatus in Latin, our calling, without tremendous dependence on others. So we must interact. So the good news is that theory gets us thinking about why it is that we do that. Because if we don't at least ask questions, I mean, even in asking a question, we may or may not come to a definitive answer. But the only inconsequential, I was going to say bad, but that's not quite it. The only inconsequential question of no consequence about an issue as large as who we are and what and why we do what we do is the question we never ask. In other words, the good news about studying communication theory is that it is essential for us to ask the question, how do we know what we know? Why do we do what we do? How do we find meaning in the ways that we interact? Because if we don't, then this leads to all sorts of problems downstream. A lot of existential angst, social isolation, destructive behaviors, addiction, self-abuse. I mean, it's a cascade of negative effects. So thinking about and talking and studying about communication theory, that's what we should be doing. That's the good news. And you might be wondering, okay, what's the bad news except for all the work I have to do during the semester? No, that's not the bad news. The bad news is despite a considerable amount of brain power and number of years thus far expended on the question of why it is that we do what we do, what does it mean? We still haven't come to a definitive answer. Okay, so I think this is something that you grow into with age. It just comes from accumulated experience. You find out the more you know about something, like say communication, you become aware of how little you really know. So, it's maybe bad news is the wrong way to put it. The challenge. Okay, that's it. We don't have any problems in this class. We have challenges. So the good news is these are essential questions to ask. The challenge is despite a lot of time and some really smart people, much smarter than I, we still haven't figured it out yet. So sometimes communication theories fall out of favor and use. There are some people say, okay, well, this is why we communicate. It's driven by economic factors. Just pull something out of the air. That would be sort of Marxist theory. And so he says, no, 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 no. That's not what primarily drives our communication with one another. It's the difference of perception and then projection by way of gender. Okay, that might fit into some of the feminist theory or gender study theories of communication. Here's what I think. Excuse me. A little tickle in my throat. I do not believe that there is a single theory that accounts for all of human interaction. That it might be, and I don't know, but it might be there's fragments, partial truths in many theories. Now it was something sought after, not so much anymore. Maybe 100 years ago or so. It was sought after in communication theory, communication studies, really, a unifying theory, a one theory that explained everything that we do and how communications work. I don't know of anyone who's come to a unified theory that does that. So you go through and you consider a number of them that have been proposed, and that's what we're going to be doing in this class, in addition to looking at what theory is, why should you care, okay, what are some ways to go about studying and approaching it, these sorts of things. So I'm assuming now, since we're like nearly 3 weeks in, everybody has the book, you've got the syllabus, you understand the workflow. All right, I will spend the next couple of few days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, immersing myself in your work. And, I might be making some comments in your discussion sections. You'll see me pop up there. All right. And then taking a look at what you've done and evaluating that is getting you some grades back as we move through the semester. And I'm looking forward to it. I think that we can have a good summer together. Okay. But in the meantime, like I said, if you have any questions, especially if you're struggling, if you feel lost and you've tried to reach out to somebody and there's nobody there, I'm not making light of your situation, of your difficulty, but you might have been typing away going, sometimes I just don't know if anybody really is hearing me. And this is a communication class. Well, guess what? Now somebody is hearing you. Okay, so email me, reach out to me. And even if it helps you, if you need explanation about the material, how to understand it or what it is that we're doing, during my office hours, I typically like to meet by Zoom so we can see each other and communicate. Okay, so I'll even set time aside to do that, to make sure that everybody knows what we're doing, how we're going to do it, and is comfortable as we move through the rest of the semester. Okay. All right, everyone. Nice to meet you. Over the next few days, I will see you on Canvas. I'm going to be thinking about you. I'm going to be praying for you. Until then, goodbye. Have a great weekend.